The sky over Seoul tore open like paper. One moment it was a normal Tuesday morning, and the next reality itself was bleeding. A massive crack appeared above the city's center, glowing with sickly purple light. People on the streets stopped and stared, phones raised, recording what they thought might be some elaborate show or strange weather phenomenon. They were wrong. The first demon stepped through, and the screaming began. It stood 30 feet tall, covered in scales that seemed to absorb light. Its face was a nightmare of too many eyes and a mouth that split its head in half. When it roared, windows shattered for blocks. When it moved, the ground cracked beneath its weight. Then came the others. Dozens, hundreds. They poured through the rift like water from a broken dam, spreading across the city with terrible purpose. They were different sizes, different shapes, but all shared one thing: they were built to kill. They were very good at it. Captain Gi-won was in a briefing room when the alerts came through. He commanded a special operations unit, one of the best in the Korean military. They handled terrorists, hostage situations, impossible missions. He had seen combat. He had seen death. But nothing prepared him for what the video feeds showed. The military responded within minutes. Tanks rolled through the streets. Helicopters filled the air. Soldiers established defensive positions and opened fire with everything they had. Bullets hit the demons and bounced off. Missiles exploded against their skin and left barely a mark. The demons regenerated from wounds that should have been fatal, their flesh knitting back together in seconds. Worse, they seemed to enjoy it. They laughed as they tore through armored vehicles. They played with soldiers like cats with mice. Some demons fed on the dead and wounded, growing larger and stronger with each meal. Others used strange powers, lifting cars with their minds or shooting fire from their hands. By nightfall, downtown Seoul was a war zone. Thousands were dead. Tens of thousands more were missing. The demons had established a foothold, and they were expanding their territory. Reports came in from other cities: Tokyo, Beijing, New York, London, Moscow. The portals were opening everywhere. This was not an isolated incident. This was an invasion. Gaewon gathered his team. There was Daeho, his second in command, a man who could read a battlefield like others read books. There was Minho, who could build a bomb from spare parts and make it work perfectly. And there was Salman, who knew more about gathering intelligence than anyone Ji-won had ever met. They were the best, and they knew it. Orders are simple, Kwon told them. We go in, we gather information, and we come back. Command needs to know what we're dealing with. How they think. How they fight. What kills them, if anything kills them, Daeho said quietly. They inserted into the war zone at midnight, moving through the ruins like ghosts. The city they knew was gone. Buildings were collapsed or burning. Streets were cratered. Bodies lay everywhere, and the smell was already terrible. The demons had marked their territory with destruction. They found a group of survivors hiding in a subway station. 12 people, mostly civilians, guarded by 3 police officers with empty guns. The demons had been hunting them, playing a game, letting them run before catching them again. It was Sport Ji-won's team set up a defensive position and waited. They didn't have to wait long. The demon that found them was smaller than the giants they had seen on the news. It's only about 12 feet tall. Its skin was red and covered in spikes. It had 4 arms, each ending in claws that looked like they could cut through steel. When it saw the soldiers, it smiled. It actually smiled, showing rows of teeth like broken glass. More toys, it said in perfect Korean. Its voice was like grinding metal. I will enjoy breaking you slowly. The team opened fire. Their weapons were the best the military had: armor-piercing rounds, explosive tips, heat-caliber rifles. The demon staggered but didn't fall. It laughed and charged. Daeho threw a grenade. The explosion caught the demon full in the chest, blowing a hole the size of a basketball through its body. The demon looked down at the wound, still smiling. Then they all watched as the hole closed, flesh and bone growing back in seconds. "Oh no," Minho whispered. The demon was on them. It was fast, impossibly fast. One of the police officers died instantly, torn in half. Guan emptied his magazine into the creature's head, aiming for the eyes. The demon screamed in pain, but kept coming. That's when something changed in Ji-won. He had been a soldier for 15 years. He had followed rules, protocols, laws of war. He had always fought with honor, even against dishonorable enemies. But this thing in front of him wasn't an enemy soldier. It wasn't even human. It was a monster that fed on fear and pain, that killed for fun. So Ji-won stopped fighting like a soldier and started fighting like something else. He grabbed a piece of broken rebar from the rubble, sharp and jagged. When the demon lunged at him, he didn't dodge. He stepped inside its reach and drove the metal spike up through the bottom of its jaw, angling for the brain. The demon shrieked and grabbed at him with all four arms. Ji-won held on, twisting the spike, pushing deeper. He put his full weight on it, feeling bone crack and tissue tear. The demon's regeneration was trying to work, but Ji-won didn't give it time. He pulled his combat knife with his free hand and started cutting. Not trying to kill, but trying to cause as much damage as possible. He went for the eyes, the throat, anything soft. He wasn't precise. He wasn't clean. He was brutal. Daeho saw what his captain was doing and understood. He grabbed a thermite grenade, the kind they used for destroying equipment. He shoved it into the hole in the demon's chest and activated it. The chemical reaction burned at over 4,000 degrees. The demon's scream was unlike anything they had ever heard. It wasn't just pain, it was fear. For the first time, the demon was afraid. It tried to regenerate, but the thermite kept burning, destroying flesh faster than it could heal. The demon fell, thrashing, no longer laughing or smiling. Ji-won stood over it, breathing hard, covered in black blood. The demon looked up at him with its remaining eye. And Ji-won saw something there he didn't expect. Recognition. Understanding. The demon had been a predator. Its entire existence. Now it knew what it felt like to be prey. "What are you?" the demon whispered before it finally stopped moving. Ji-won didn't answer. He didn't know if he had an answer anymore. They got the survivors out. They reported back to command. And Ji-won told them what he had learned. These demons could be hurt. They could feel pain. They could die. But to beat them, humanity would have to fight in ways they never had before. They would have to become something the demons had never encountered in all their conquests. They would have to become worse than the monster's command listened to his report in silence. Then the general in charge asked the question that would define everything that came after. How far are you willing to go? Guan thought about the dead in the streets. He thought about the survivors in the subway, the terror in their eyes. He thought about his own family, somewhere in the chaos, hoping he would come home. As far as necessary, he said. And then further. The war had just begun, but something had changed in that subway. The demons had come to Earth expecting to conquer another primitive species. They had no idea what they had actually done. They had given humanity a reason to stop pretending to be civilized. 3 months had passed since the portals opened, and Earth looked nothing like it had before. Major cities around the world were either destroyed or turned into battlegrounds. Millions were dead. Entire governments had collapsed. The demons controlled roughly 30% of the planet's surface. And that number grew every day. But something unexpected was happening. Humanity was adapting. The United Earth Defense Initiative formed from the ashes of failed national armies. They pooled resources, shared technology, and created new military doctrines, specifically designed to fight enemies that didn't follow the rules of conventional warfare. Ji-won's unit, now called Reaper Unit, became the foundation for this new approach. The training camps were unlike anything the military had ever created before. They didn't just teach soldiers how to kill demons. They taught them how to think like demons, how to understand them, and most importantly, how to hurt them in ways that mattered. Hyuji was one of the new recruits who rose quickly through the ranks. Before the invasion, she had been a hostage negotiator for the Seoul police. She understood psychology, human behavior, manipulation. Now she applied those skills to understanding demon psychology. She studied, captured demons, interviewed survivors, analyzed combat footage. What she discovered changed everything. The demons had a hive mind connection. Not complete, but enough that strong emotions and experiences could be shared across their network. When one demon felt intense pain or fear, others nearby could sense it. This was meant to be an advantage, a way to coordinate attacks and share tactical information. Hyuji realized it could be a weapon. She presented her findings to Juan in a command bunker deep underground. Maps covered the walls, showing demon territories in red and human holdouts in blue. There was far too much red, a shared trauma, Hyuji explained, pointing to her research. When we hurt one demon badly enough, all the demons connected to it feel echoes of that pain. They've been using this to make us afraid. Every human they kill, every atrocity they commit, they broadcast it to each other. It makes them stronger, more confident. So we do the same thing back, Jiwan said immediately.
Exactly.
But we have an advantage they don't. They've been apex predators for thousands of years. They conquered 17 dimensions before ours. They know how to kill, but humans. Humans have been fighting each other for all of recorded history. We have refined the art of warfare in ways they can't imagine. We know how to make suffering last. Daiho looked uncomfortable. You're talking about torture. I'm talking about survival, Hyagi corrected. They started this war. They made the rules. Now we play by those rules better than they do. A new member joined the discussion. His name was Taijan, a scientist who had lost his wife and 2 children in the first week of the invasion. He had been working on weapons development, and what he created made even hardened soldiers nervous. I've designed something, Taijan said, opening a case. Inside was a device that looked like a grenade, but with strange biological components. It doesn't kill. It causes pain. Extreme, unending pain. The demons regenerate, right? This takes advantage of that. It attacks nerve endings, makes them fire constantly. Every cell in their body screams, and because they heal, it never stops. It lasts for hours. Minho picked up the device carefully. This is a war crime against humans. Good thing we're not using it on humans, Taejin replied coldly. Salman had been quiet throughout the meeting, but now she spoke. Her role in Reaper unit had evolved. She didn't just gather intelligence anymore. She ran interrogations, turned captured demons into informants, learned their language and culture. The work had changed her. They all noticed it. We have 3 demons in holding facility 7, she said. Low-level soldiers, but connected to a command structure. I propose we test these new methods. See what happens when we really hurt them? See what their commanders feel through the hive mind connection. There was silence in the room. Everyone knew what they were really discussing. They were planning to cross lines that civilized nations had agreed never to cross. They were choosing to become something dark. The old world is gone, Jiwan said finally. The old rules don't apply anymore. We tried fighting them honorably, and we lost entire cities. So now, we fight to win, no matter what that means. Are we all agreed? One by one, they nodded. Operation Nightmare began a week later. It wasn't a single mission, but a campaign of calculated cruelty designed to send a message through the demon hive mind. Reaper unit and the new squads they trained became hunters, and demons became the prey. They started capturing demons alive instead of killing them. They used Taejin's pain devices. They discovered that certain frequencies of sound could drive demons insane. They found that demons had a concept of honor and dignity, and they systematically destroyed both. Hyugi developed psychological warfare tactics that were breathtakingly effective. They would capture a demon commander, break it mentally through methods that made interrogators from the Dark Ages look merciful, then release it back to its own forces. The commander would spread the trauma through the hive mind like a virus. Other demons would experience the fear, the helplessness, the understanding that they were no longer the apex predators. During one mission, Daiho's team cornered a demon war party in an abandoned factory. Instead of killing them quickly, they implemented Protocol Agony. They trapped the demons in a space rigged with Taijan's biological weapons, sonic disruptors, and conventional explosives. Then they left them there for 3 days. The demons' screams were broadcast through their hive mind. Every demon in a 50-mile radius felt echoes of what was happening. When Reaper Unit finally ended it, they made sure other demons found the bodies. The message was clear. Surrender quickly or die slowly. It worked. For the first time since the invasion began, demons started retreating from human-held territory. Not because humans were stronger, not because human weapons were better, but because demons, for the first time in their long history of conquest, were afraid. But the victories came with a cost. Hyaji barely slept anymore. When she did, she dreamed of the things she had done, the psychological torment she had invented. Tajan worked obsessively on new weapons, each more horrific than the last. He never spoke about his family anymore. Minho started drinking heavily after missions. Summons interrogations became more effective and more brutal with each session. Giwan watched his team changing, becoming harder, colder. He saw the same change in himself when he looked in the mirror. They were winning battles, but they were losing something else. Something important. One night, after a particularly brutal operation, they sat together in silence. They had just executed a mission that killed 300 demons in ways that would haunt anyone with a conscience. The demons had been trying to establish a breeding ground in what used to be a school. Reaper Unit made sure no demon would ever want to go near that place again. Are we still the good guys? Minho asked quietly. Nobody answered immediately. They all knew the truth. They had become something else. Something necessary, maybe, but not good. Not anymore. The demons feed on fear and pain, Jiwan said finally. They grow stronger from suffering. We learn to be better at it than they are. Does that make us good? No. Does it make us human? I don't know anymore. But it keeps people alive. It protects the innocent. If we have to become monsters to fight monsters, then that's what we do. And when the war is over, Hyuji asked, what happens to us then? Jawan had no answer. None of them did. They had unleashed something in themselves, something that had always been there, but kept carefully locked away by civilization and morality. They had proven that humans, when pushed far enough, could out-demon the demons themselves. The question wasn't whether they could win anymore. The question was, what would be left of them when they did? In the demon-held territories, the commanders were beginning to realize their mistake. They had invaded Earth, expecting another easy conquest. They had encountered countless species before. Some fought bravely, some surrendered quickly, but all eventually fell. But humans were different. Humans didn't just fight to survive. They fought to destroy. They studied their enemies, adapted, evolved. They took the demon's own tactics and perfected them. And they did it all with a creativity born from 10,000 years of warfare against each other. The demons were learning what it meant to be prey. And they were learning that humans, despite appearing weak and soft, were actually the most dangerous things in the galaxy. Not because of their technology or their strength, but because of what they were willing to do, what they were willing to become. To protect their own, the war was far from over. But the balance had shifted, and the demons were starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they had made a terrible mistake. Carvax had lived for 3,000 years. He had commanded demon armies across 17 dimensions, watched entire civilizations fall before him, and never once questioned his place as a supreme predator. He was a warlord standing 15 feet tall, covered in ancient battle scars that told stories of victories too numerous to count. His word was law among the demon hierarchy now, for the first time in his long existence. Carvax was confused. He stood in what had once been a human government building, now converted into a command center for demon forces. Around him, his officers reported increasing problems. Not defeats, exactly, but something worse. Retreats, desertions. Demons refusing to enter certain human-held territories. Explain this to me again, Carvax said, his voice like grinding stone. We are losing ground to humans? Humans? The small, weak creatures who die if you look at them wrong? One of his commanders, a demon named Vexerith, stepped forward reluctantly. Vexerith had commanded the assault on Tokyo and had been considered one of their most ruthless leaders. Now he looked diminished somehow, smaller. My lord, the humans have changed. They fight differently now. Vexrith struggled to find words. They fight like demons. No, worse than demons. They have learned to cause suffering in ways we never imagined. Kervax struck him, sending Vexrith flying across the room. Impossible. We have perfected warfare for millennia. These creatures have barely left their own planet. Then go see for yourself, Vexrith said quietly, blood dripping from his mouth. Go to the front lines. Feel what we feel through the hive mind. Then tell me I'm wrong. Carvax did exactly that. He went to a battle zone on the outskirts of what humans called Beijing. He expected to see his forces dominating, pushing forward, claiming territory. Instead, he found demons huddled in defensive positions, unwilling to advance into certain areas. What is this cowardice? Carvax roared. A young demon soldier, barely 2 centuries old, pointed to a ruined section of the city. Reaper unit was there yesterday. They left things. Traps. But not just physical traps. They left demons alive, tortured, broadcasting their pain through the network. Anyone who goes near that sector feels it. All of it. Carvax connected to the hive mind more deeply, something he rarely did. As a warlord, he usually stayed above the common soldier's experiences. Now he opened himself to their shared consciousness and immediately regretted it. Pain, fear, terror, not the familiar sensations of victims, but of demons. His demons. The hive mind was contaminated with trauma, psychological wounds that spread like infection. He felt echoes of torture sessions that lasted days, of demons begging for death and being denied, of humans who smiled while they inflicted agony. He pulled back from the connection, shaken. In 3,000 years, he had never felt anything like that in the hive mind. The demons were supposed to be the ones causing terror, not experiencing it. Show me these Reaper unit humans, Carvax commanded. On Earth. Giwan's forces had evolved beyond even their darkest early tactics. They had become surgical in their brutality, understanding exactly how to maximize psychological impact. Every mission was planned not just for military objectives, but for the terror. It would spread through the demon hive mind. Deho had become a specialist in hunting demon commanders. His team moved through enemy territory like ghosts, identifying leaders and eliminating them in ways designed to traumatize the demons who found the bodies. They studied human history's worst moments and borrowed. Liberally, impalement, crucifixion, public. Displays that would have been war crimes against humans, but were considered acceptable against demons. The moral arguments had ended months ago. The line between right and wrong had been crossed so many times, it no longer existed. What mattered was effectiveness. And these methods were devastatingly effective. Summon's interrogation facility had become legendary among demon forces. They called it the place where screaming never ends, in their language. She had perfected techniques that broke even the strongest demon minds. She learned their culture, their beliefs, their fears, and she used all of it against them. One captured demon, after 3 days in her care, agreed to broadcast a message through the hive mind. A warning to all demons: surrender to humans and die quickly, or resist and experience something far worse. The demon meant every word. Minho had discovered something interesting about demon biology. Their regeneration could be slowed with certain chemicals, making them vulnerable for extended periods. He developed weapons that combined these chemicals with traditional explosives. Demons hit with these weapons couldn't heal quickly, and they felt every injury completely. It was biological warfare elevated to an art form. Taijan had gone even further. He created what he called empathy weapons, devices that forced demons to experience human emotions, love, hope, compassion, for creatures that had lived for centuries, knowing only domination and cruelty. Suddenly feeling genuine emotion was psychologically devastating. Some demons went catatonic. Others killed themselves rather than continue experiencing feelings they couldn't understand. Hugie coordinated all of these efforts into comprehensive psychological warfare campaigns. She identified weak points in demon command structures and exploited them ruthlessly. She turned demons against each other, spread misinformation through their hive mind, created paranoia and doubt where there had been certainty. But the operation that truly changed everything was the Battle of New Tokyo. Demon forces had surrounded the city, preparing for a final assault. They outnumbered the human defenders 10-1. Victory seemed certain. Then Reaper unit arrived with a plan that made even their own command structure nervous. They called it Protocol, RAGN, AROK. G1 explained it to his team in simple terms. We can't win this battle conventionally. We're outnumbered, outgunned, but we can send a message. We can show them what humans do when we have nothing left to lose. They rigged the entire city with explosives. Not just buildings, but underground tunnels, bridges, dams, upstream. If the demons wanted New Tokyo, they would have to take it as a tomb. But more than that, Ji-won's forces made sure the demons knew about the plan. They broadcast it openly, let demon scouts confirm the preparations. The message was clear. We will die. We will lose this city, but we will take every single one of you with us. And we will make sure your deaths are slow and painful. Carvax led the demon forces himself. Determined to prove that humans were not the threat, his commanders claimed. He brought his best warriors, veterans of multiple dimension conquests. They advanced into the city expecting the usual human tactics. Last-ditch defenses, desperate counterattacks, eventual surrender. Instead, they found a nightmare. Reaper unit wasn't defending. They were hunting. Small teams moved through the rigged city, picking off demons, using the explosives not to destroy the demons but to trap them, to hurt them, to make them suffer. They fought with the energy of soldiers who had already accepted death and now had nothing to fear. Guan personally confronted a demon strike team, and Carvax felt the echo through the hive mind. The human captain fought with skill, yes, but also with something else, joy. He enjoyed the combat. He smiled as he killed. He laughed when wounded. He was everything demons were supposed to be, but more intense, more focused. You came to our world, Ji-won said to a dying demon, knowing others would hear through the hive mind. You thought we would be easy prey. You were wrong. We are not prey. We are not even equals. We are worse than you. We are what you would become if you had to evolve on a planet that tried to kill you every single day. We are survivors, and we will do anything, become anything, to survive. Carvax made a decision that went against every instinct. He ordered a retreat, not a tactical withdrawal, but a full retreat. His forces pulled back from New Tokyo, abandoning the siege. The demons had never done this before. They had never chosen to retreat rather than accept casualties. But the humans weren't offering casualties. They were offering mutual annihilation, and they were willing to follow through. Back in the Demon Command Center, Carvax called a meeting of all major demon leaders. Through the HiveMind network, commanders from around the globe connected. We have made an error, Carvax announced. These humans are not like other species we have conquered. They adapt too quickly. They learn too fast. And most importantly, they are willing to lose everything to hurt us. So we fight harder, one commander suggested. No, Carvax said. I have lived 3,000 years. I have conquered 17 dimensions. I know when we are facing an enemy, we cannot break. These humans will never surrender. They will fight until their entire species is extinct, and they will take us with them. Every victory costs us more than it's worth. Every advance into their territory becomes a trap. They have turned their own weakness into a weapon. What are you suggesting? Vexrith asked quietly. I'm suggesting we consider the impossible. We consider leaving, sealing the portals, finding another dimension to conquer, one that doesn't fight like these creatures. The other demons were silent. The idea of retreat, of admitting defeat, was alien to their nature. But through the hive mind, Il felt the same thing, the accumulated trauma of fighting humans. The understanding that this war might be one they couldn't win. On Earth, in a bunker deep underground, Jawan and his team reviewed the battle reports. The demons had retreated. They had actually retreated. We're winning, Minho said. But he didn't sound happy about it. Surviving, Jiwan corrected. Winning would mean we didn't have to become what we've become. They sat in silence, each dealing with their own thoughts. They had proven that humans could be more brutal than demons. They had saved countless lives through their actions. But they had also discovered something about humanity that perhaps should have stayed hidden. They had discovered that humans, when necessary, could be the scariest thing in the universe. 6 months into the war, Earth's situation had completely reversed. The red zones on the command maps were shrinking. Demon-held territories were being reclaimed, not through massive battles, but through systematic, psychological warfare that made demons abandon their positions voluntarily. Humanity wasn't just fighting back anymore. Humanity was winning, but the cost was becoming impossible to ignore. G1 sat in a medical facility, watching a young soldier receive treatment for physical wounds that would heal in weeks. The psychological wounds would take much longer. The soldier was only 19 years old, and he had just completed his first mission with one of the Reaper-trained units. He had done things that no 19-year-old should ever have to do. He had done them well. That was the problem. How many more like him? G1 asked the medical officer. Thousands, she replied. We're creating an entire generation of soldiers who know how to inflict trauma better than any warriors in human history. What happens when the war ends? What do we do with people we've trained to be monsters? Giwan had no answer. He left the medical facility and returned to the command center, where Hyugi was presenting her latest breakthrough. I've discovered something crucial, she said, displaying neural mapping data. The demon hive mind isn't just for sharing tactical information. It's how they maintain their culture, their history, their identity. Everything a demon experiences gets stored in the collective consciousness, which means we can attack their entire species at once, Deho finished. Hyoji nodded. I've created data packages containing selected pieces of human history. Every genocide, every war, every documented atrocity. When demons access this information through the hive mind, they don't just read about it, they experience it. They feel the weight of human cruelty across 10,000 years of recorded history. Tajan looked up from his workstation. He had been developing new weapons nonstop, barely sleeping, driven by memories of his dead family. I've been working on something similar. Psychological weapons. But instead of causing pain, they cause understanding. They force demons to feel human emotions. All of them at once. Empathy is a weapon, Salman said quietly. She had aged visibly in 6 months. Her hair was streaked with gray now, and her eyes held a hardness that hadn't been there before. We're not just fighting them anymore. We're trying to break their entire species. They tried to do the same to us, Minho pointed out. He was drinking coffee spiked with something stronger, a habit he'd developed to get through the days. They came here to conquer us, to feed on us. Everything we're doing is self-defense. Is it? Hyoji asked. At what point does self-defense become something else? We've killed millions of demons. We've tortured thousands. We've traumatized their entire species through the hive mind. We're winning, yes, but what are we winning? What's left of us when this is over? Giwan interrupted before the argument could continue. We can debate morality later. Right now, we have an opportunity. Demon forces are retreating globally. Their command structure is in chaos. If we push now, push hard, we can end this war. The question is how far we're willing to go for that final push. A new voice spoke up. General Park, who oversaw the entire United Earth Defense Initiative, had joined the meeting. We have approval for Operation Apocalypse demonstration. Command wants to send an unmistakable message to the demon leadership. We want to show them what happens if they don't leave our dimension voluntarily. Operation Apocalypse demonstration was Minho's concept, refined by Taejon and approved at the highest levels of human government. It was designed to be a demonstration of total warfare capability. Everything humanity could do if all moral restraints were removed. They chose an island the demons had fortified heavily. It was a strategic position, but also isolated enough that the demonstration could be contained. The demon forces there numbered in the thousands. well-defended and confident. Reaper unit led the operation. But they had support from every branch of the new military: regular forces, specialized units, scientific teams. They brought weapons that had been developed but never deployed. Technologies that violated every treaty humans had ever signed about warfare. Biological agents, radioactive materials, experimental energy weapons, chemical compounds that shouldn't exist. They also brought Hyegi's psychological packages and Taijin's empathy weapons. The attack began at dawn. It wasn't a battle. It was an extermination carried out with scientific precision. They hit the demons with everything at once. Conventional weapons to damage them. Biological agents to prevent regeneration. Psychological weapons to break their minds. And then, the final component, Taejon had created something he called a temporal disruptor. It didn't kill demons. It erased them. Not just their bodies, but their presence in the hive mind. It was as if they had never existed. The demons who witnessed this through their connection experienced existential terror on a level they couldn't process. But the worst part, the part that made even hardened soldiers uncomfortable, was that they broadcast the entire operation to Carvax directly. They made sure the demon warlord experienced every moment, felt every death, understood exactly what humanity was capable of when all limits were removed. The island was erased. Not destroyed, erased. When it was over, there was nothing left. No ruins, no bodies. Just ocean where land had been. The weapons used were so powerful they had literally removed matter from existence. Carvax received the message in his command center. Through the hive mind, he had experienced the death of thousands of his soldiers. But more than that, he had felt something he had never felt in 3,000 years of existence. Genuine, overwhelming, existential dread. A communication channel opened. It was Juan, speaking directly to the demon warlord. "You came to our world thinking we were prey," Juan said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "You thought because we seemed weak, because we showed mercy and compassion, that we were easy targets. You were wrong. Those things we showed, mercy, compassion, those were choices. We chose to be civilized. We chose to be kind. But you took away those choices. You forced us to show you what we really are." Guan continued, but Jiwan continued.
What?
"You saw today was a demonstration. A small sample of what we can do. We have weapons we didn't use. Capabilities we didn't show. We have nuclear arsenals that could turn your dimension into radioactive waste. We have biological weapons that could target your species specifically. We have technology that makes what you just witnessed look merciful. What do you want?" Carvax finally managed. "We want you to leave. Close the portals from your side. Go find another dimension to conquer. Because if you stay, we will show you no mercy. We will use every weapon we have. We will sacrifice our own people, if necessary. We will turn this planet into a graveyard for both our species, if that's what it takes. And we will enjoy doing it." The last part was what truly terrified Carvax, because through the hive mind connection, he could feel that Giwan meant it. The human captain wasn't bluffing or posturing. He genuinely meant every word. Humans had discovered they were good at warfare, and part of them enjoyed it. "We will discuss your proposal," Carvax said. "You have 72 hours, Guan replied. "After that, we demonstrate again. But next time it won't be on an isolated island. It will be on your largest concentration of forces. And we won't stop until every demon on Earth is gone, one way or another." The channel closed. In the Demon Command Center, Carvax called together his remaining leaders. They were all connected through the hive mind, sharing thoughts and feelings openly. "We came here expecting another easy conquest," Carvax said. "We were wrong. These humans are not like other species. They are adaptable beyond our understanding. They are creative in ways we never evolved to be. And most dangerously, they are willing to destroy themselves to destroy us. We could still win," one commander argued weakly. "Could we?" Carvax challenged. "At what cost? We've lost tens of thousands already. Our soldiers are traumatized. Our hive mind is contaminated with human-inflicted psychological wounds. And they just demonstrated they have weapons we can't defend against. Weapons they haven't even fully deployed yet. You're suggesting we leave? Vexareth asked. I'm suggesting we survive, Carvax replied. We have conquered 17 dimensions. We can find another. One without these cursed humans. One where the prey doesn't turn into predators. Through the hive mind, the demon leadership shared a collective realization. They had made a fundamental error in their invasion of Earth. They had assumed that because humans showed mercy and kindness, that those were signs of weakness. They didn't understand that mercy was a choice humans made from a position of strength. When that choice was taken away, what remained was something far more dangerous than demons had ever encountered. Humans weren't weak, despite their compassion. They were terrifying because they could choose compassion even though they were capable of such brutality. On Earth, Reaper unit gathered in their command center. They had one. The demons were considering retreat. But nobody was celebrating. We showed them what we're capable of, Salman said. But we also showed ourselves. We can't unsee that. We can't pretend we didn't enjoy some of it. Speak for yourself, Minho said, but his voice lacked conviction. She's right, Hyoji added. We discovered something about humanity today. We discovered that when we stop pretending to be civilized, when we unleash everything we're capable of, we're the scariest thing in the universe. Is that something we should be proud of? Giwan looked at his team, these people who had become his family through shared trauma and violence. I don't know if we should be proud, but I know this. We survived. Billions of people are alive because of what we did. Children have futures because we were willing to become monsters. History will judge us. Maybe it will judge us harshly. But history exists because we won. They sat in silence, waiting for Carvax's response, waiting to see if the war would finally end. Each of them carried scars now visible and invisible. Each of them had learned things about themselves they wished they hadn't. But they had learned the most important lesson of all. Humans could be anything they needed to be to survive. Angels or demons. Saviors or destroyers. And that was more terrifying than any demon could ever be. The portals closed on a Tuesday morning, exactly 71 hours after Giwan's ultimatum. One by one, across the globe, the dimensional rifts sealed from the other side. The demons withdrew completely, taking their surviving forces and leaving Earth behind. They left no message, no explanation, no threat of return. They simply vanished, choosing to abandon an entire dimension rather than continue fighting humanity. The war was over. Humanity had won, but victory felt hollow. Giwan stood on the rooftop of what remained of Seoul's city center. Watching the sun rise over ruins that would take decades to rebuild, the city he had grown up in was gone. The country he had sworn to protect was fundamentally changed. The world itself was different now, shaped by 6 months of total warfare that had killed hundreds of millions and transformed. Those who survived, his communication device buzzed. It was General Park. Captain Juan, report to command. We need to discuss your new assignment. The meeting room was full of officials from the United Earth Defense Initiative. They wanted to make Jiwan the head of the new global military force. They wanted him to lead the restructured defense program, to prepare humanity for the next potential threat. They wanted to use the tactics and methods that had won the war as the foundation for future. Military doctrine, Jiwan listened to their proposals in silence. When they finished, he gave them his answer. No. The room went quiet. No, General Park repeated. Captain, we need experienced leadership. You know better than anyone how to fight existential threats. You developed the strategies that won us this war. Exactly, Jiwan replied. I know what we did. I know what we became. And I know that we can never let that happen again unless absolutely necessary. You want me to lead a military force based on the principles we used against the demons? That military would be the most dangerous thing on Earth. More dangerous than any external threat. He stood up, looking at each person in the room. We won because we were willing to become monsters. We used torture, psychological warfare, weapons that violate every concept of moral combat. We did these things because we had to, because the alternative was extinction. But now the war is over. If we normalize what we did, if we make it our standard approach, we become the very thing we fought against. So what do you suggest? Another general asked. I suggest we remember. We document everything we did, every tactic, every weapon, every method. We classify it all and lock it away. We train the next generation of soldiers to be professionals, not monsters. But we keep the knowledge, keep the capability, in case something like this happens again. We keep it as a last resort, not a first option. The meeting ended with uncomfortable agreement. Nobody wanted to admit it publicly, but they all knew Juan was right. The methods that had saved humanity were too dangerous to become routine. G1 returned to find his team. Reaper Unit was being officially disbanded. The members would be reassigned, spread across different roles in the New World Order. It was the right decision, Juan knew. Keeping them together would be like keeping a loaded weapon with no safety. Hugie was already transitioning to a new role. She was establishing a psychological rehabilitation program for former soldiers, especially those who had served in the special units during the war. The work was overwhelming. Thousands of soldiers were struggling with what they had done and what they had become. I spoke with a young man today, Hugie told Juan. 22 years old. He joined 6 months ago. He's killed more demons than I can count. He's good at it. Too good at it. And now he doesn't know how to be anything else. He doesn't know how to be human in a world without war. Can you help him? I don't know, Hagi admitted. I'm trying to help people process trauma when I'm the one who designed the tactics that traumatized them. How do you counsel someone about the things you taught them to do? Daeho had taken a different path. He was working with reconstruction efforts, helping rebuild the cities they had defended. He said it was penance, his way of balancing the scales. He had spent 6 months learning how to destroy efficiently. Now, he wanted to learn how to build. I wake up every morning thinking about the demons I killed, Daeho told Juan one afternoon while they worked on clearing rubble. Not feeling guilty exactly. They would have killed us all. But wondering if there was another way. If we could have found a solution that didn't require us to become what we became. Maybe, Juan said. Or maybe not. We'll never know. All we can do now is try to be better than we were during the war. Minho struggled the most. He had been the weapons specialist, the one who created devices specifically designed to cause maximum suffering. He tried to return to civilian life, but he couldn't adjust. He was too good at his job, and his job had been creating nightmares. One night, he gathered all his weapon designs, all his notes and research, and brought them to Giwan. Destroy these, he said. I can't keep them. I can't trust myself with them. Every time I look at these designs, I think of new variations, new ways to make them worse. I need them gone. Giwan took the documents but didn't destroy them. Instead, he locked them in the highest security facility on Earth, alongside all the other classified materials from the war. Future generations needed to know what humanity was capable of. Even if they hoped to never use that knowledge, Salman had perhaps changed the most visibly. The woman who had once negotiated with terrorists using empathy and understanding had become an interrogator, who broke demons through systematic cruelty. Now she was trying to find her way back to who she had been before. I remember being kind once, she said during one of their final team meetings. I remember believing that everyone deserved compassion. Then I spent 6 months proving that some beings deserve only fear. Now I don't know which version of me was real, both Juan replied. That's what we learned. Humans aren't one thing. We're whatever we need to be. We can be kind or cruel, compassionate or ruthless. The war forced us to be one extreme. Now we have to find balance again. Taejin was the hardest to reach. He had thrown himself into weapon development as a way to cope with losing his family. Now, with no more weapons to develop, he was lost. He agreed to work with scientists studying the demon technology left behind, but his heart wasn't in it. I miss them every day, he told Jiwan. My wife. My children. And the worst part is, I'm glad they didn't live to see what I became, what I was capable of. They would have been ashamed. Or they would have understood, Guan suggested. You did what you did so others wouldn't lose their families. You became a monster so the world could have fewer monsters in it. 6 months after the portals closed, the United Earth's Defense Initiative held a memorial ceremony for all who had fallen during the invasion. Millions of names were read. Cities observed moments of silence. Giwan was asked to give a speech, representing the military forces that had won the war. He stood before a crowd of thousands. With billions more watching across the globe, he saw survivors, refugees, children who had lost parents, parents who had lost children. He saw his team members scattered throughout the crowd, and he tried to find the right words. "We won a war," Jawan began, "but we lost something in the winning. We lost our innocence. We lost our certainty about who we are as a species. We learned that humans, when pushed far enough, can be more brutal than literal demons from another dimension." The crowd was silent, listening. "We'll say we should be proud of this, that we should celebrate our capacity for violence because it saved us. I disagree. We should acknowledge it. We should remember it, but we should not celebrate it." He paused, gathering his thoughts. The demons came here expecting to conquer prey. They found predators instead. Not because we were always predators, but because we chose to become them when necessary.